Minneapolis and Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Oh, we're not playing the Vikings song today, I guess, because what happened last night. Michael Brodkorb is our Vikings expert. Also, he's a political commentator. We'll talk to both categories today, but we start with talking about the Vikings last night. They lose 12-10 in not exactly a scoring monster house. Michael, first of all, you were at the game. How do you feel after you walked out of that one?
There was highs and lows. There was ups and downs. I'm glad I got to experience it. I will note that someone on social media posted this, and I saw it today, about the game, and it should be preserved. I don't know what the retention record policy is for post X or Twitter, it's whatever it's called. But someone sent this out last night that said, if you or a loved one watch the Vikings-Bear game, you may be entitled to financial compensation. It was just perfect. It was. I was there with family. It was. The game was not. I did not watch it at home. What I've heard from people that were watching at home, that it's been single-handedly called one of the worst Monday Night Football games ever. It wasn't much better in the stadium. A lot of sloppy play, but I'm glad I got to experience the highs and lows. I do want to share one quick story.
Sure.
As I was walking out of the Vikings, I was walking out of the stadium last night. And with my daughter, one of the best kind of comebacks that the Vikings fans were kind of hurling at the Bears fans is they were touting in essence saying, "Look, think you guys, you're still 4-8. You're 4-8. You're 4-8." They were literally debating about the Vikings record. And I explained to my daughter, I said, "That's the Vikings fans in a microcosm. They lose a game they should have won. You have these lonely Bear fans leaving. They have a 4-8 record. And the Vikings fans, that's what they can come up with. What they fail to acknowledge is they are one of the 4 wins that the Bears got this season."
Yeah. How about we do start with a positive? You can't criticize the defense at all. The defense did exactly the defense did exactly what they needed to do. And sure, that last drive they were able to go down the field, but don't look at the defense. They only gave up 12 points, and Chicago never once saw the end zone.
Correct. The Vikings did, yes. The Vikings defense did everything they could, and starting from the positive perspective, that's a great place to start, and probably the only thing that we can be positive about last night is, and it's good that we're starting that way as Vikings fans.
The Dobbs, 4 interceptions. His problem is this, and it's interesting because definitely his legs are something that Kirk Cousins doesn't have, and was clearly something that was not, something that defenses initially were not prepared for. But now we're looking at it. He can't throw the ball with accuracy deep. And deep, I mean by 30 yards or more. He's not exactly, we're not going Hail Marys into the end zone. But he clearly has some consistency issues, throwing deep passes. And, yeah, that was something that, the Bears' defensive game plan was this. We're going to stop the run. We'll stop short passes. And he just has to throw the ball downfield. And it was a good plan because they picked him off 4 times.
Correct. And one of the things I think we've talked about in these kind of post-Viking games analysis that other people have wondered is, if my math is correct, Dobbs has been playing for 7 years, and he has spent his time with the Steelers, Jaguars, Browns, Lions, Titans, and the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes.
One of the discussions that we had after we had a few wins here in a row with Josh Dobbs is what did the other teams not see in Josh Dobbs? Did the Vikings just hit the jackpot here, or were there decisions that other teams mistakenly made? One of them is Cleveland, who's down a quarterback. And I think it's fair to say after last night's game that I think the Vikings fan base and maybe the Vikings organization saw, maybe for the first time, why he has been with so many teams over his 7-year career.
Yeah. He definitely, he does bring some skills there, but once the defense knows how to play him, and Denver sort of saw that, and they picked up on it, although it wasn't as, I think, the Bears defense, to give them credit, they really played a game which Dobbs just could not win, and eventually he did get into the end zone, that one touchdown pass to T.J. Hawkinson, but it was clear, especially in the first half, that Dobbs just had no idea what to do there.
Correct, and as someone also pointed out on social media, they said it seems that Dobbs did better as a Vikings quarterback when he knew less of the playbook. It did seem. You're realizing, Matt, that my best analysis comes from listening to other smart people and reviewing social media.
That's pretty good.
The other thing is, I would say, is he just seemed overwhelmed last night. He seemed uncomfortable, out of place, and I do wonder if there is. If he's just learning more about the Vikings scheme, how they play their play calling, if he just hasn't adapted to that next level where he can be. You obviously can't win a game when you're just running kind of those simple plays. There needs to be some depth to the play calling. But last night he just seemed incredibly out of sorts, and it was just it was an ugly game. It was just an ugly game. Ugly game to watch.
Your comment about the depth of the playing calling is spot on, because I want to go through one series with you. Vikings score the touchdown. The Bears get the ball back. Immediately fumble. We are in Bears territory, which is not a place we were at a lot. And here are the three plays that we tried. Now, once again, there was 2 minutes and there was 2.5 minutes left at the end of this series. So you have to understand, you're up by 1 point. You need to get points. This is not a run out the clock situation. You need first downs. You need to move the ball down the field. And the first play was Madison up the middle for no gain. Second play was a 1-yard gain by Madison to the right tackle. Third play was a pass, which was basically at the line of scrimmage, which once again, you're then hoping that the defense allows your guy to run 10 yards. Yet that was just such poor play calling. And I don't think that's Dobbs. I think that's the sideline. I don't know. They pulled a PJ Fleck. They basically sat there and started celebrating before the game was over. And the reality is, you got 3 minutes here, and you do not want to they don't have to go 100 yards. They just have to go 65, 70, and they'll have a shot at winning this game. And that was incredibly disappointing how badly the play calling was at that moment, because that was a key series, which basically ended up costing the Vikings the game.
That was the most angry I heard the crowd, and there was booing and heckling and kind of just general kind. But that series of play, and you're very insightful by selecting that play call. That's where things just started to get ugly in the stadium, because there was a lot of venting and yelling about the play calling and how they played out that last kind of series, and it led to the Bears coming back, and it was very frustrating to play calling. It was not It was not a great game, and both teams. There's a lot of work that both those teams need to do. That game was clearly winnable for the Vikings, and they're getting these situations where there's that kind of sloppy play calling, and there are a fair number of PJ Fleck references, and it's justified in that situation. It's absolutely justified. The positive, the one other positive thing that we have to note is as of today. And I always check before our calls, the Vikings are still on a playoff spot.
Yes. Well, and they do. And the coaching staff has come on out here and said, you and I talked last week in the Denver game, if Justin Jefferson played in that game, the Vikings would have won. I still think even if he would have played in the game last night, Justin Jefferson brings such a dynamic, they would have beaten the Bears. I understand that Dobbs has got a problem throwing the ball deep, but now I think we are understanding maybe the reason why Jefferson hasn't come back might be a little bit the injury, but maybe they already know. It's like Dobbs really can't throw the balls with consistency 40 yards. We need him to do it, especially in high-pressure situations. So now they're basically saying they're going to reevaluate the quarterback situation, and whoever can throw the ball with consistency and accuracy to Jefferson will be the starting quarterback in 2 weeks when they come back from their bye week.
Yeah, there's a much-needed bye week right now for this team, and we'll see what they do. I wonder. I just have a feeling. I mean, your take? Do you think they go with Dobbs?
I think they still do. I honestly do. I just don't know. I mean, the rookie with the concussion. I don't think that he's going to be the guy there. But I think that and Mullins, I mean, it's he's got a little bit more of an issue there. But so Dobbs is one there. It's you've got to have a game plan that is a little bit more than just kind of hoping that one of these guys can get the ball down the field. Jaron Hall was the guy, the player that got the concussion. Nick Mullins is injured to the lower back. So Dobbs is still probably your number one starter. But I think we both can say this now. It's clear if you're the Vikings, you're going to Kirk Cousins and saying, guess what? You can come back. We'll give you a contract.
Yeah.
Might not be as much money as you were going to get before because of the injury, but your seat here on the bench is still warm, and we'll have you back for it. I think that they got to just get through this season, and then it's get Kirk Cousins back, and hopefully he's healthy.
Yes, I think they do start Dobbs. I think Jaron Hall they may take some additional looks at. I do think you're spot on with discussing that. Had Dobbs delivered us some wins. Had been, I think, more consistent. And, that opportunity still might exist. We don't know. But as of now, I think Cousins has a clear opportunity to come back because it wasn't that last night's game was bad. It was really bad.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very difficult game to watch, to experience. And it was a tough loss because it was well within reach of the Vikings to win.
One last positive note on football before we go back to politics here, but I will say this. They are 6-6 right now. They got 5 more games. Raiders, Bengals, Lions at home, Packers at home, Lions on the road. There is a legitimate chance this team could go win 5 games. And if they win out the season, especially with Detroit playing the week before they play us in Detroit at Dallas, there's still a legit chance the Vikings could win the NFC North. And I'm not saying they will, but if they win all 5 of these games, I don't see how they don't win the NFC North.
You're exactly right. If they can win, and that's a really surprising position for the Vikings to be in right now.
Yeah.
Based on last night's play, I will tell you, Matt. I've been going to Vikings games for 44. I'm going to be 50 next month. I've been going to Vikings games for 40 plus years, 48 years, 47 years. Hands down, one of the worst games I've ever seen. Just because it was such sloppy play on both sides. If that team can get it together and they can get into a streak there, it's absolutely possible. I think it's likely they make the playoffs. I think there's also a path for the Vikings to win the division. But if the team that showed up last night shows up for the Raiders, the Bengals, the 2 Lions game, and the Packers, then we got real problems.
Yeah.
Then we got one last negative thing I do want to say about last night that I was just not happy with. Adrian Peterson was there, and I'm not a fan of Adrian Peterson. He was there.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say
last night. He did he led the Skull chant with Chuck Foreman and Robert Smith before the game. There was some noticeable booing in the crowd when he was there, and I just it was a bad omen for the game. I think to have Adrian Peterson walking around U.S. Bank Stadium last night. It just was not a good experience.
A lot of people wanting to forget a lot of things there. Let's just put it that way. All right. So 2 weeks, we're going to talk after the Raiders game. We'll talk after that. I want to get into politics because there's something you've got your podcast, The Breakdown with Brodkorb and Becky, which you do have. Don Samuels, who is challenging Ilhan Omar for the primary for the Minnesota 5th Congressional District race, was on your podcast. He said a comment here. I've already played this once before in the last hour, but I'm going to play it again. And once again, for everyone that's listening, the first part of this is just standard politics. It kind of takes a turn there at the end of this. Patrick, if you could play that one more time.
And so to see government not be responsive like that to the people who pay them, it is offensive to me. And to not be responsive and available to those people, to meet with them and find out what their concerns are and to answer their tough questions, to not get back to people on the phone. Who do you think you are? And who do you think you're working for? You're not cute enough. You don't dress well enough. Nothing about you is attractive enough to overcome that deficit.
The first part of that is standard political talk, and that's just what it is. That's the game. That last part, you're not cute enough, you don't dress well enough, nothing about you is attractive enough to overcome that deficit. This is your podcast, man. First of all, your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's the interview speaks for itself. It's him. He is. It speaks for. I think it speaks for itself, and it is certainly a comment that has gotten some attention, and I think that the concerns that folks have. I think it's completely their frustration can be justified in that comment. I understand. I don't. I've read the quote, read the context, read everything, and I struggle a bit with. I understand his point. I don't agree with it. And I think it's important. I just don't know how that's going to go over in the fifth.
You and I talked about this before. We call it an unforced error, and it doesn't mean he's in real big trouble, but he's going to have to address that, because that one is, especially in Minnesota 5, that's not a good comment to make, and that's going to get traction. I guarantee that there. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is the report from the Reformer that there is a group that is trying to oust David Hahn as the head of the Minnesota GOP. My personal belief is if the Republican Party has any chance at taking back the Minnesota House next year, Hahn has to be the guy in charge. If they put a MAGA guy in charge, they got no chances. They'll probably lose seats, as a matter of fact. Am I off base on that, or do you think that that's a fair assessment?
Yes. First of all, I don't think that the effort that's being organized against the Chairman Hahn and has any basis. I don't think it's procedurally allowed. And I don't think that there's any rational basis. The chairman was just reelected to an election. He won. There's a pathway for that to happen if people want to remove the party office or do this. I for the life of me, I cannot comprehend why anyone would want the chairman of the Republican Party, Chairman Hahn, to be removed. The Republicans have been trying to get their footing, getting some stabilization around their efforts. And I think that Chairman Hahn, and he and I have had our differences over the years, but Chairman Hahn is right now a steady hand at the till that's needed right now at the Republican Party. Got a good executive director that they've hired. I think that would be a cataclysmic mistake to do that. It would be a cataclysmic mistake to do that, and I'm not supportive of it. I'm not a delegate. I'm not an alternate. But I think that the Republican Party, both nationally and this state, has to stop shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to this stuff. And to piggyback a little bit and go back to the comment from the Samuels interview, I think it is important when anyone is talking that they're engaging in meaningful, responsible rhetoric on both sides of the aisle. And Matt, we've discussed both examples, and I think there is just I don't, again, not my words. I don't agree with what was said. I don't even want to try and justify and explain what was said. There's obviously a context, and there's some statements made that the listeners can listen to it. But I think that this is important times, and we need to be talking about important issues. Mm-hmm. And on both sides of the aisle, we're experiencing this type of stuff. And I think it's incumbent upon public officials and candidates running to engage in responsible commentary and think proactively about how they're going to message themselves. Right now, there is a group of inside the Republican Party who are engaging, who are both arsonists and firefighters. They are out there starting fires, and then they want to be the solution and pull them out. And I don't think that is helpful and productive in this environment. Yeah. Likewise, in the 5th Congressional District, we had a great conversation with Don Samuels, and I would say, I would hope, and one of the things that he pointed out that I hope happens, I do hope there's debates. I do hope there's substantive conversations and discussions about what's going on. But when you conduct interviews, your public record, your votes, all that stuff is fair game to be scrutinized, and both sides. And that's how the process works. But when an incumbent is running, they want to, generally speaking, when the incumbent is running, they want to talk about the positives of their record. When a challenger is running, they want to talk about the challenger. I would not talk about the challenger in the language that was used. That will be an issue for the voters in the 5th District to decide.
And Chairman Han, and thank you very much. I mispronounced that. Thank you, Chairman Han. I said the other way. But no, you're right. And people overlook the fact that Han is basically dealing with the mess that he inherited, and that was a big mess.
Correct.
And the same thing is, I'll say this about Samuels. His first point, that's valid politics. Criticizing someone because you don't think they're as accessible to the constituents, that's legit. It's where it takes a turn when that becomes a problem. So you're exactly right. Spot on as always. Michael Brodkorb.
And I hope.
Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. No, I just want to say closing. I'm glad that you and I have found a way, aside from Vikings coverage, to always fairly kind of, call out both sides for this type of stuff. I'm not trying to gauge in both sides, but what I appreciate about our conversations as Republicans and Democrats, that we're not afraid to speak up on our sides or other sides. So I appreciate that, man.
We used to do this all the time. We don't do it anymore. That's why it's not so unique. This is how things used to be, folks, in the 80s. This is how things used to be. All right, Michael, 2 weeks we'll talk to you after the Chargers game, or the Raiders game, okay?
I hope it's good news.
Hope it's good news, my friend. Take care. Michael Brodkorb, I'll post all this stuff a little bit later. Final break. Come on back, wrap up the hour. It's the Matt McNeil Show on AM 950.